Unmuted, you're live.
Thank you. Good evening. For tonight's work session. Angela, can you call, I'm going to call, can you do a roll call, please? Sorry.
Roll call, Haley. Mylan,
Here.
Mulvaney Henry,
Here.
Bryant,
Here.
Gonzalez.
Here.
Groneman.
Here.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve tonight's agenda for the work session?
This is Jeff, so moved.
This is Tom, I second.
Roll call, please.
Roll call, Mylan,
Aye.
Mulvaney Henry,
Aye.
Bryant,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Groneman.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Thank you. Do we have any board updates from any board members?
Well, I would make an update. I attended the Public Works and Safety Standing Committee, UG Standing Committee on Monday. A week ago, I think. And one of the presentations they had was from Black and Burns and McDonald, where they did a rate study, cost of service and a rate design study for their solid waste. And they're recommending, or will be recommending to the board naturally an increase in solid waste.
To this board or to the
To
UG?
the UG.
Thank you.
And so, just so we know for when we meet with them on Wednesday, that their rates will probably more than likely, will be going up. When 23, the current rate for solid waste is $17, and over the next, 24, 5, 6, 7, and 8, next 5 years, it'll be going up, $5.86 to $22.80. With the recommendation.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate that.
That was the only thing that was of any interest. It was very interesting.
And then I would add to the record that board member Haley arrived at 5:02.
Thank you. Any other board members? I'll let David catch his breath there for a minute. Have any other updates or from any other meetings? Mr. Haley,
Yeah, excuse me.
I literally was trying to
Thank you. We have not, we didn't convene. EDF, Economic Development and Finance, has not convened since our last meeting.
Okay, thank you. Bill, got anything?
Yep, a few things. I'll be quick. Last week I had lunch with the county administrator, David Johnston, last Wednesday, and just to catch up. I mean, I met with him several times before. We were just having general conversation as to how things are going with him in his new role, you know. Asked him how much are things different now that he's been here for a little while and settled in compared to when he was interviewing and all the research he did prior to that. And he said, you know, I didn't know that there was so much for me to take on at one time. And I didn't know that there was so much unfinished business for me to work my way through. So.
Can you tell him welcome to that one?
Yeah, well, I think he's. Yeah, I think he's very experienced. I think he's certainly seemed to be up for the task, and I told him if I can help with anything, I will, you know, just whatever support I can in terms of just telephone calls, sharing some of my knowledge, Wyandotte County, you know, encourage him to continue to reach out to other elected officials, other people on the UG staff, and he knows he's got a lot of jobs to fill. He knows he's got a lot of things to do in terms of trying to transform unified government offices and things that he wants to accomplish to try to turn, you know, get some of that in place. And he is concerned about the debt unified government is under, and he's trying to figure out how he can go forward with that, you know. in a realistic way, you know, and not make false promises and come up empty, but he's got a lot on his plate. He's got a lot to do. Part of it is educating the Board of Commissioners around some of his thinking in terms of budgeting and how to go forward with this year's budget and the future budget. So he certainly believes in the revenue neutral approach. He thinks that the taxes are high and he certainly is into what property values being higher, being assessed higher. But there hasn't been any attempt to go back and lower the mill levy or to re-examine how well the programs that the unified government are sponsoring are they working. So we've had those conversations quite a bit up to now, and probably will continue as long as we meet, you know, certainly just giving him my opinion, but he's got a much tougher job of getting through what he's trying to get through now than even what I can imagine. In terms of the rate increases that Tom just spoke to, what I'll do is prior to the July 13th meeting, I'll send you what all UG rate increases have been over the last 10 years. So you'll have that knowledge and understanding going into the July 13th meeting. They have raised rates quite a bit over 10 years. And the one thing I was interested in was the last time that we actually raised our water rates, which has been 10 years. What have they done across the street? And then you can certainly see what they've done over the last 5 years since we raised our electric rates. So don't be surprised when you see the numbers. Some of them are pretty significant. And then finally, we're still collecting information on the community engagement group applications. They're moving slowly. I'll wait another this week and maybe next week, and I'll start update the board on where we are with that. But they're not coming in near the pace I thought they would. I think there's, sorry, I'm looking 5, 6, 7 total today.
Right.
7 or 8 today. I think last week it was like 5 or so. So there's 2 or 3 more come in. So, but I'll give you an update. Give me a few more days. Let's see what comes in. And I do have Patrice update me every Friday. See kind of where we are.
Is there some way we could put out some kind of blast reminder somehow?
Yeah, we talked about it. I mean, David has already done that. I guess let's wait another week or 2 and then I'll send another blast out. That works for you guys. I think in the July was our target date for completing, right?
July 25th.
July 25th, okay. Okay, so we'll make sure we move. We'll move next week with some other communication. Okay. I was
And
trying to remember that.
And on that, Angela, do you have enough names for the steering committee for that?
I owe you a couple of cents.
Okay, I do. Not everyone's turned in, but I believe I have enough that. But it would be good to have some.
Yeah,
backup.
you two that had committed to me.
So I would remind other board members, if you guys have names and contact information for members or members of the community that would like to be on the steering committee. They only have to do the one thing, and that's pick who's going to initially be the community engagement ambassadors. I would encourage you to get that to Angela prior to July 20th, let's say.
Okay, that's all
Thank
I
you.
have for current.
Bill, could I ask you, Mr. Johnson does have a good knowledge of municipals. He's worked
Yeah, he's.
in municipal before.
Yeah.
Utility.
Yeah, so I think this may be a little different since the city county is unified. In the past, he served as city managers, Covington, Kentucky. He was a city manager of a utility in the suburban Seattle, Washington area. Then he served somewhere else. I got to go back to his resume to remember the other one. But he certainly knows his way around. He talks about his economic development experience and what he's done in other cities. He's also talked about the financial conditions that he left those other cities in, things like that. Seemed to be a big proponent of empowering staff, but at the same time holding staff accountable for what they do, so. But yes, he's got in terms of everybody that we interviewed, he had by far the most experience in terms of having, been in the jobs before or, a long period of time.
Thank you.
If I can add to, so I've just left a meeting with County Administrator Johnston, the mayor, and the Wyandotte delegation. And as Mr. Johnson was saying, Bill was saying, he really is concerned. I don't know if any of you saw the last UG meeting or the one prior to that. We just kind of laid it on the table, the circumstances that from his assessment as to where the county is. And he put 4 steps that could be implemented that would hopefully turn it around. I told him I appreciated his candor, though it's kind of grim. And so we just visited just within the last half hour or so. And you talked about the revenue, revenue neutral, which is way over David Haley's head. But what the implications would be if it's implemented or not. The commission may not get back to that. There was a close vote the other day. And because there wasn't a quorum, the mayor voted and his vote, well, we probably need to leave that to our council, Angela Lawson, to let us know what that is. But the administrator seemed to favor both sides. For larger growing cities should be one, but then for other cities that are not having growth, it would be the other. So again, that was over my head, but he's the most engaging person. He's looking forward to meeting that we're gonna have. Is it the
13.
13.
Well, and I would also say to that, David, he certainly understands the issues that BPU are under. The concerns and stuff is because it is different than what has happened in other cities, and he's fully aware of that. It's just, where's our starting point? Where's our end game? And how do we get there? So it's going to be probably the thing we'll need to continue to focus on the most, and be persistent with here's what we want to do, and here's how we're trying to start to continue to work towards those goals, because it's not going to happen overnight. If we're not persistent, then it definitely won't change. So.
Okay, so I guess that leads us into the segue into the joint meeting on July 13th. Bill, I know, at least I presume that you have received some input from board members
Right.
previously. Oh, there we go. We're going to a PowerPoint.
Yeah, so
No,
I just put this together to kind of have a visual.
super.
Go to the next one. So basically, without reading, you got to know about the 13th meeting. Here are the 3 things that I've talked to all of you in the room about, and then here's what you provided feedback to me on. One is having a conversation about removing the UG charges from the BPU bill. And the other one is continue conversations on pilot reduction. And also having a conversation around what BPU has traditionally called contribution to the community. In my mind, it's really contribution to the unified government, because I can't sit here and say that all of our contributions to the community is actually getting to the community. So then I'm not, in my mind, I'm kind of changing my whole method around how I think. And if the UG can go back and talk about, here's the $49 million of free services and payments and everything that we're giving every year. If they can say, here's how they're not only receiving it, but here's what the community impact is, then I may go back to contribution to the community. But for right now, it's, in my mind, it's contribution to the unified government. Board don't have any concerns with that. I'll continue to walk down that road. Because I haven't seen the connection.
I don't see any concerns with that.
Okay.
Any other board members?
No, go for it.
Okay, so So, Jeff, ahead.
The only thing that I would, you know, when I was elected in 2011, we had a meeting with the UG Commission and the BPU Board, and we haven't had one since. And I remember that meeting became a little adversarial. So I don't know that that was necessarily the reason why we haven't had another meeting, but I would caution about, you know, the approach coming in. We should be honest and open, forthright, but as far as contributions to the community versus unified government, I mean, ultimately, the unified government, I mean, basically is the caretaker of the community. So it's up to you guys how you want to approach it. I don't have a problem with it still being considered BPU contributions actually to the unified government for our community.
Okay.
So that they know it's them. But I mean, it's up to you guys. I mean, I just think that I don't want to start it out with, you know, on the wrong shoe and people get defensive. I'd like to have an open and fruitful conversation.
Right. And Jeff, I'll say, and I agree. I mean, I don't want to go in wanting to argue with the unified government, but what I do want everybody that's in attendance to understand that what our citizens are paying in terms of services. I mean, this is not BPU or the UG. This is the people that make up our community. What they're paying for BPU service, what they pay for unified government service, to me exceeds what other citizens are paying in other communities, okay? And I mean, I'm working on some stuff to try to justify that. And in terms of, here's how much taxes you pay, here's how much you pay in terms of total utility bill, everything that's on the bill. And then here's the BPU part that's helping to support the unified government that you don't actually see other utilities doing in other communities.
Yeah, I don't say back away from telling them the dollar figure that we provide, because it's important that the community understands that there's $50 million almost
Right.
that the BPU takes in and it immediately leaves in one form or another.
Right.
So,
And it's $50 million that our residents are paying.
well, I'm paying. All of
Absolutely,
us are paying that. So
absolutely.
it's important that we as residents acknowledge that part of that BPU bill is not a BPU bill. I think that's a very important message that we cannot state often enough.
So Rob, can you turn the page? So here are the items in and color coded for electric charges. We all know there's the base rate, customer charges, there's the two riders that's on there. So I just basically summarize it as BPU electric charge, BPU water charges are the things that BPU collect revenue on, and it comes back into our operations to help support what we do in terms of providing service. We also collect wastewater charges, stormwater charges, and the pilot.
What about solid
Trash.
waste?
Trash, I'm sorry.
I just make sure you get them all.
You're right. You're right.
If they're raising.
And I didn't have a bill in front of me when I was going through this.
Yeah.
Going off.
Trying to remember, yeah.
Right. So yes, the trash is on there as well.
Services, yeah.
So we'll make sure we have, if you want to present something, I'll make sure I add this to the list for the 13th. If you guys don't want a PowerPoint, then, I mean, that's kind of why we're meeting here today too, so. And then actually the taxes, Lori, those, we can itemize those taxes. I know there's state taxes.
I've never understood taxes on the bill. I mean, not all utility bills have taxes. You know, tax on
Tax.
utility, not all of them do, sales tax.
Sales tax. That, for some residential is. There's no.
Maybe
State tax.
two charges, we talked about that, make sure they
There's city.
include that.
Yeah,
I see your bill.
You know what charge is. Yeah. Right here, those two right there.
Yeah, that's what's up there about. So we're talking about sales tax and Kansas water plan fee.
Their tax plan.
But that's only on the water side.
Water tax plans only on the water,
Bound and recharge.
Yeah, those are all electric charges, so.
and the sales tax is on the electric side.
Electric,
Okay.
whatever, just your electric bill.
Right.
All utilities pay sales tax.
Mhm. We,
And that's on the base rate and the kilowatts,
yes,
the total electric bill.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's just residential state tax is exempt for residential customers.
Okay.
But like commercial has to pay tax.
And industrial.
Yep.
if we're gonna use this, all color code tax is different, so it'll stand out. It won't be necessarily UG. I'll also include trash, so. I guess while we're on this slide, is there any conversation? And then I guess the other question is, when we get to the meeting. I mean, what are you looking for me? Or board, or who's taking the lead as spokesperson or, yeah. I guess I'm looking at you. So tell me what my role is and I'll be happy to do it.
I know you haven't known me very long, Bill, but I'm very shy.
Okay. Okay.
Well, have they presented, like, has there been a discussion about what format's gonna be for this?
It's gonna be in this, well, so I've asked the question, when are they gonna send out communication? When am I gonna be able to see something with an agenda? Angie,
So traditionally, they won't send out an agenda for a special session. They will send out probably on Monday, they will set the time. There might be another item on there. They were talking, someone I think had asked to come present, a community partner. So if that happens, if you figure from, it starts at 5, so they probably put them from 5 to 5:30. But either way, normally they end a little before 7 to give time to transition down.
Yeah,
So it would go anywhere from an hour and 45 to, I would say, an hour and 15 minutes would be the allotted time.
so there's
But
not,
we'll know more on Monday. They normally
Okay.
they meet to set the final schedule for the evening, but they normally don't set an actual agenda for special sessions.
so what we can do here is, once we get through this, and I have a good idea of how we're gonna approach the meeting. Get all of you guys sign off on what we're gonna do. We can send out a notice ourselves. For BPU board would be meeting with the unified government. That'll be a public notice that'll come out. You don't wanna do it. I don't necessarily mean we can't.
Right. They'll have to they'll put out the public
Okay.
notice, but that won't happen until next week.
and it'll just say that there's gonna be a meeting at the time
Right.
and a location.
And the topics.
Yeah.
The meeting notice will list the topics. And then, if you want the slides, then those have to be turned in the day of
Okay,
so that they can load
All right.
them.
So has the UG commission spoken on what their presentation will be? Or, I mean,
so
I know that we talked about 2 or 3 topics
Hmm.
for discussion from our side, but is there gonna be likewise from them or?
well, the last time I met with the mayor and David to get county administrator together, they said that send us your short list of items, and then both of them are gonna start updating the commissioners or requesting information from the commissioners. So I can't answer if they've already done that or not. They're gonna go back and ask commissioners, here's what they want. So what I would like to do, and I didn't want to send anything over until we met, but tomorrow I'll email him to say, here's our 3 items that we want to put on an agenda. Now you're free to go to the commissioners and collect whatever they
Their
want.
agenda,
So
their
you can,
topics.
you're now be able to tell them what to talk about.
My concern is, what's the consensus of this board in terms of what you want to extract from our bill? I want all of them off, every one of them. They could be independent, in charge of the community for wastewater. Pilot, be a difficult one. The storm charges, which claims that government had identified that $14 million can take to complete the storm charges. So they passed that on to us for $630 a month. Trash is $17 a month. Bought off at $15 a year and a half ago. They increased by them last November to $17. So I'm charged going up $2 more. Wastewater, now I think the average per person is around about $23 a month. We look at the bill that hands over there, they could take all those charges off. What's the current bill you got? For example. You see this in there. Get my point. This bill said UG charges.
They're on the back. Bob, just turn that page up.
Right here.
No, on the back of the page. There. No, turn that over.
With the EPU. Here's the UG. Yeah. UG charge the month is $58 a month. And if it was taxes here, $23 a month. But the big is from wastewater, $44.75 a month. Some charges $6.30. Trash collection $17. $58 a month. This total bill here is $276. OBP charge is $68. Charge $180.
So the
Add that-
UG about 25%.
I'm totally all electric.
Well, the UG
So
is
if
about
I subtract
$25.
$58, so I'm $297. That'd be a big savings for everybody.
So to Bob's point, if we're gonna ask you to take all the charges off, then we probably should. They'll probably have some conversation about how do they charge the community from the UG.
How do they charge for their personal property tax?
Meaning. You meaning like,
They bill.
like how do they physically do it?
That may be something that they are talking about themselves. Yes, I mean, I know
Okay.
they,
I just,
yes, they send out property taxes. Personal property taxes go out through the, what's the name of the,
my YCO app.
my Whiteco app, right? So, I mean, they do have processes in place to where they can bill people. And then I would also remind the board that every other community around here, the cities send out their taxes or they bill their consumers themselves. This is the only place that don't. So,
Well, and I mean, we won't be completely absolved of any interaction with the UG because if they continue with the pilot fee, they can only get the pilot fee by sales. So they're gonna have to, we're gonna still have to supply them with what the sales for each customer are, so that they can figure out the appropriate pilot fee for each one.
Well,
I would imagine we'd still collect the pilot but it's gonna be hopefully at a reduced rate from 12% down to 6% or.
Right.
But we would still collect it and still pass it through just like we have been.
Because
I know they did. That's.
That's a whole.
Wishful thinking.
the pilot is levied on the BPU, not the customers. And then the way that because it's on gross revenues, not on the customers. And then obviously to collect it, because your cost of service, that's the way it has to be collected.
Okay, and to that point, glad you made it. There is a woman who contacted, a resident that contacted Commissioner Bynum about the pilot work, right? Don't know if that email had been shared with you. Don't know if it's been shared with you. It was shared with me. And, you know, in this email, this resident says, you know, this is for the taxes that BPU does not pay, right? And we residents should not be burdened with the debt that BPU is supposed to pay. And I get that. I get why a customer thinks that, even though as a municipally owned utility, or any utility for that matter, our costs do need to be recovered, right? So I would encourage you, I know we've talked about this, to the extent that you can at least, I'm not saying have it as part of the slideshow, have that data ready for what we would be assessed for property taxes.
Yeah, that was.
If we were in Evergy, what would the percentage be?
So
The
Evergy
dollars, actually.
Evergy operates in Bonner Springs and Edwardsville. They pay a 3% franchise fee. We pay 11.9% pilot. Okay, I've already done some research on if we were paying property taxes, if we were paying the franchise fee, and if the unified government was paying BPU for the services, because they wouldn't get the services free if this was Evergy. I would say without giving you numbers, it's astonishing how much different things would be if we were operating under those certain.
And I think a good way to approach that in a more of a positive light is that when you talk about here's the total give from the BPU side, and just be like, as a comparison,
Right,
if the BPU is not a municipal utility,
right.
this is what the UG would expect to
Right.
receive. So once again, it's just reconfirming the value of the BPU as a municipal utility in our city.
Right.
I just want us to try to spin as much in a positive way as we can.
We can.
So,
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And to Rose's point, I was going to say the same thing. If we had a sort of number that we can throw out, if we were paying tax on this building, it would be, or, the whole total. And maybe even throw in, since the national average for the pilot is about 6 or 5, you could throw that number, in, because we're twice that. I mean, in a real positive way, Jeff.
and that's, it's just to show them, I'm not going to take a stance one way or the other, are they overcharging or not? Mine is, at this juncture, let's just acknowledge where we are today.
I
Because
totally.
you have to understand where you're at before you can make a decision on how you're going to move. I mean, I would like to see another meeting, in the near future and bring in ECKCC. Because they, on our taxes, I believe they represent like 17% of our personal property tax. So it's important that we get all of the taxing entities together and say, guys, if we take all of these dollars and put them together, because when in reality, there's not that many taxes coming from the BPU. Most of what you're getting from the BPU is sold product. You're selling electricity and you're selling water. The BPU is a manufacturing company, a manufacturing distribution. So it's important that we get everybody together and say, look, you take all these costs that come at one of us residents. That's how much it is to be a Wyandotte County. How can we make it as affordable as possible for the citizens of our city and still maintain the services and needs of the community? I mean, it's going to take everybody, coming together and.
Oh, I would say the majority of this board and the majority of theirs, we're working for our sustainability but we're working for the community, basically. We all want the same thing, I think.
Well, let me say this. The bonding company, all three bonding companies, Chris, Standard & Poor's, has recommended year after year after year. We're paying too much for the pilot. They recommended 7.9. They've done that for the last since 2009. Pick up the report from Standard & Poor's and Moody's. I would read they need something from the pilot. National average 5.5. I support 7.9. The city needs that money. Absolutely. And to be realistic and be fair and honest, that 5.5 probably is a little low. 7.9 to me is what the bonding company that has all the money, we don't have a dime. People that loan us the money to do the infrastructure and everything else comes from the bonds that we support. They approve, loan us the money to do our job. We recommend in good faith, we think that we can afford 7.9 support the city. I can go along, people's got the money, we don't have a dime. We got the board the money to do everything. But they recommend that, they got the big boys with all the expertise and knowing what the pilot's all about. They recommend.
So all the information that I have thus far, I would say it's all preliminary numbers. What I would ask, I'm gonna present that is for the unified government to have their finance people and our finance people work on it together to make sure that everything is as I may present it. Okay. I have gone and used some people at the unified government, some people at BPU to help put this together, but I would certainly say it needs to have a thorough look at both financial areas of the unified government and BPU.
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, when this meeting is over, there's gonna be subsequent meetings the UG is gonna have.
Right.
And they're gonna need people who can
Yep.
answer their question.
Right.
When
Yep.
the commission wants to understand.
Right.
How can we, you know, I know one of the ideas that have been floated is, can we reduce the residential portion of the pilot and maintain the commercial and industrial, which would, you know, as a voter, I would have no issue with that because there's really no residents that are getting tax abatements for 25 years. So it makes sense that we find ways to get revenue from the industrial and large commercial as well as our residents.
Okay. So I know Commissioner Byam has already started work on trying to find ways of reducing the pilot. She did present that back to the full commission. And Rose, you were there, Lori, you were there. I don't think that there was a huge appetite for taking that forward. So,
So I think it is going forward, because legal's been working on it.
okay,
There are two steps to it. One is the rebate program
Okay.
to expand that a little bit, and that just requires an ordinance change. That'll also update the sales tax rebate for the elderly below the poverty line, disabled and veterans. And so there's that piece which only requires that. The second one that Jeff mentioned would require a charter ordinance change. And so I think that is sort of the second leg of.
so if you can quickly recap what it is she's proposing, because I know not all board members are at that meeting, so.
The first one is a rebate for, the UG does rebates for sales tax and for pilot. And it can't exceed, I think, 400 in each category. The income requirement is very, very low. So not a lot of people qualify for that.
Devin's poverty level, not 1.5 times.
Right, it was
Yeah.
full, it's
20 something.
It was very low. So they want to kind of expand that, expand it for the homes to be closer to the Homestead Act, which is the Kansas program for property tax. And they want to expand it to veterans. And because right now you have to have the age and the poverty level to qualify. And I think they want to do poverty level, age, or veteran status, or disability status. And so then and then you bring in, and it would not affect the utility at all. They have to go in, prove where they live, bring in their bills, and then they get a rebate not to exceed 400 for each of the categories. So that's sort of phase one. Phase two, which is to separate out the residential from commercial and industrial, and that will take longer because it is a charter ordinance. And so that maybe not this budget cycle. I don't know that it would be done for this year, but in the future, they could set two different rates for those.
Actually, and when they do that, they may want to think about just separating all three of them as to be standalones. That way you can adjust them in the future. If you want to change industrial from commercial as business growth ebbs and flows, you can follow it. And if you're going to make a change, you might as well make it as complete as possible.
One thing I'm trying to collect is pilot information and all contributions from other. Well, I go to APPA, but I'm trying to look at cities similar to Kansas City and municipals like BPU collect that, so we can really do more of an apples to apples comparison. So I got 6 requests out. I may do 7. The other municipal utilities that offer multi-service like us that are within the same size, customer size that we are, some generation, some not, but they're all municipals throughout the Midwest. So
When you do that, when you have that pool, you may also look at the economic level for the
Right.
residents of the city. So that you can compare that. I mean, it is really important that they can monitor where we're at.
I don't know if I'll have all that in
Yeah.
place by
Yeah.
13, but I'm still waiting on some of it.
Samantha, we want to accept other comparisons. Seems like they disregard BPU is their almost bad guys across America, so to speak. So our comparison with other municipals don't make no difference to them at all. They're concerned about Tennessee, Kansas, period. They're not too willing to accept what we present to them. They have that mentality, have to dispel, I don't know how we're gonna do it. But they have a bad feeling about BPU historically. Change that is very difficult.
Well, I mean, it is important to understand what the median income is of a community when you're looking at that, because it's the burden. You know, it's like, gentleman from the Sierra Club was talking about the energy burden. You know, when he talks about that the BPU is, you know, one of the highest energy burdens for its residents. Well, it's not because the BPU's rates are higher, because actually we rank 77th out of 151 utilities in the state of Kansas on our rates. It's that the median income per household is so much lower that obviously the burden for everything is going to be higher.
Right.
As a percentage, you know, the burden that they pay for fuel for their car is a higher percentage of their income.
Groceries.
Very important
Exactly.
point. Yes, and that's right. Yeah.
So, not sure the whole conversation around pilot, but I mean, there's some things to think about, and I'll get you this as I update it and give all the other, so pull the other information together and add additional slides to it. I'll get that out to you before we. And then contributions to the UG. Can certainly turn it back. I've got community UG in there. Just a reminder of what 2023 looks like. 47.5 million total. Again, this would look a whole lot different if we were paying property taxes, paying franchise fee, not paying the pilot, and the UG was paying.
That's what they don't understand.
UG was paying her $7.5 million a year, and
Paying for street lights and hydrant,
yeah,
well.
right.
hydrant.
They won't accept it at all.
So Kansas City, Missouri, Overland Park, everybody else pays all these rates to their utility. Okay, and those other cities find a way of making their city and
Right.
county government work in their areas. And their taxes are not higher than Wyandotte County at the same time, so.
Thank you.
Do we know what the 2023 budget was for the UG roughly? 300, 330?
Or like this is the fours.
That's more.
It's on the web page.
The fours,
Gee,
30, 360,
60 sounds more familiar, though.
that's us. But they're like 430.
total saving contribution is a key factor. That's the contribution that comes from not 160,000 population, it comes from 65,000 customers has a bill with the Board of Public Utility. 50,000 on the water side. Period. That's the money we receive. We got 3 avenues: residential, commercial, and industry. That's our money. Plain and simple.
think that's it, Rob. Just next steps and if anything we need to do to wrap up this conversation in preparation for the 13th.
I feel like, in a way, we're providing information that some of even our commissioners might not be familiar with.
Right.
And so I think, just presenting it as information and as Jeff said, in a positive manner, I think it might be eye-opening to some of the people who are
Right.
in
I
attendance.
think the information is most valuable to the commissioners than anybody else. They really don't know.
I think there's
They really
some that don't.
So I have asked the mayor if it would, if he could somehow September, October timeframe, maybe September, be on the agenda for the UG Commission meeting, to come over, and just give a state of the utility update. And can be kind of an educational piece I can offer up. Their budget is $432 million.
So our contribution makes up about almost 12% of their annual budget, at 48 million, yeah.
Well, they'll have a clear understanding about it because they haven't had before. Especially the last 5 commissioners that were elected, last election, they have no idea. But we'll be able to explain that hopefully the 13th of this month.
My hope is that it's the first of many
Okay.
meetings that, maybe we can meet every 6 months. So,
Right.
and just come up with strategy on how we can improve the life for our residents.
Yeah, well, and I've also talked to them about getting our quarterly meetings back on schedule too, so. And that.
Maybe
so,
Mr.
if we
Johnson
do-
can help with that.
Yeah, so if we could do that with president, vice president, and then do our 6-month
Yeah.
semi-annual meeting, both elected bodies, then. That may be one way to forge.
I can tell you that it would be a positive step for, I believe, for our residents to see that. I think that they would see the idea that you have 2 of the largest entities in the community that are meeting together to discuss how they can be better for our community. So,
But to your earlier point, Jeff, here's what I haven't seen. I know when the residents come to the UG and talk about taxes, they'll, UG, the mayor, not sure if the mayor, but anyway, the conversation over there will always say city and county taxes on your bill only makes up this percentage of the total taxes, okay? But I don't know if they put much effort into trying to get all the other tax entities together to have a joint meeting among everybody to say, how do we work together? I haven't seen that, so.
well, and it may be, as much as I pie in the sky hope that can happen, it may not happen, but it also may come down to the UG starts becoming a little more engaged. I don't want to say forcefully, but engaged in the taxing being done by the educational systems in Wyandotte County to let them know that, everything needs to be in proportion.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Jeff, I move to adjourn.
That's it.
It's been moved and seconded. Angela, roll call, please.
Roll call Haley, Mylan,
Aye.
Mulvaney Henry,
Aye.
Bryant,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Groneman.
Aye.
That motion carries. The work session is adjourned.